if you're a doctor, if you're a nurse practitioner, if you're an executive at a hospital, whoever you are, you need a plan. And the hard part is that all too often when folks start thinking about retirement and how to get there, they're far too late. So you have to have a plan. You have to have a North Star, how much you're saving, why you're saving, here's the strategy. And if you don't have a plan, it's not going to come together. So I think this is especially critical for folks in the medical profession because they might have delayed gaining an income to go to school and get all these doctorates and to have such specialties. So the plan becomes ever more important. It's so much easier to plan for retirement when you're in your 20s than when you're in your 50s. That's just the miracle of compound interest, as Warren Buffett says, is that the longer time horizon you have before your plan's enacted, the easier that plan will be to achieve. So first and foremost, have a plan. As it relates to student loan debt, and doctors are especially exposed to this, but I think more and more people of all different backgrounds have student loans. Again, I think it's have a plan. Don't just pay off the minimum. Don't just pay off the loan as it comes due. You just have to have a strategy as it relates to all these different types of loans and, what's the interest rate. And, if you want to pay the highest interest rate loan first, that's a great idea. So really, by and large, it's just have a plan, put it into a software, have an advisor put it into the software so that you guys can strategize on how best to pay that off. As it relates to the financial plan, I think one of the most important things for doctors especially, but for all folks, is having disability insurance. And basically, disability insurance will help substitute your income if something happens to you and you're no longer able to work, and if you're no longer able to work in your field. So for doctors, it's especially important to have occupation insurance because, for example, if you're a heart surgeon and you break your hands and you're not able to practice for the next 10 years, if you have certain types of disability insurance, that might not cover that exposure because you're still able to work elsewhere. But the whole reason you went to school, the whole reason you got all this debt is to practice this sort of medicine. You have to really take that into consideration. So I think disability insurance is probably one of the areas that most gets overlooked by people. That's what I fear most as a young man who has a family. If I'm unable to work and provide for them, but I'm still alive, it just can be very, very, very expensive. So I think, again, just having that plan, baking in some of the contingency scenarios is very important. And the last element in this financial plan that we focus on for people is taking advantage of all these tax advantage accounts. So the government sure asks a lot of us in the personal income world. I mean, some folks are paying close to 40% on every marginal dollar that they make. So when the government throws you a bone and they say, hey, this is a tax expense or this is tax-free growth, you certainly want to take advantage. So specifically, 401k is one that almost everybody has access to, or their cousins, a 403b or a 457. Some employer-sponsored retirement plan is so vitally important. So take advantage of it. Further, take advantage of that employer match. If you aren't at least contributing enough to get the full match, I think you're making a mistake. It might be really difficult to make ends meet, but go get that match that employers are giving you, a free $5,000. I think it's really, really important. 529s I'll talk about really briefly. As I said, I have young kids. The most daunting thing for us financially is potentially paying for college. It could be $200,000, $300,000 for them to go to school by the time they turn 18. So an example of why planning and planning early is so important is if I start thinking about paying for Raphael's school when he's a junior and he starts applying, I'm going to have to figure out how to come up with $250,000 potentially to pay for his school. Whereas if I started thinking about it when we were at St. Joe's in Tampa and we were having him a few years ago, I put $500 away a month into his account. That account over 18 years will grow tax-free to about $300,000. So that's just an example of how that power of compounding works. And if you have a plan and if you start early enough, a lot of these really daunting goals can be made a lot more simple. So with this financial plan, I think it's the North Star for everything we do. You need to know how much you need to save. You need to know how much of a return you need to make to be successful. And without this plan, things get very, very challenging. So every client we have has a financial plan, and it's something that we revisit at least yearly to make sure that everything's accurate, everything's updated, and we're still making progress to our ultimate destination.